So on this first equation that they're giving us, they're saying which expressions are equivalent. In other words, which ones have the same value. Although they might look different, when I work them out, would look almost like this, but still have the same value. And when we're simplifying expressions, we need to remember that when a number is in front of a parenthesis, what do we have to do with it? Multiply it. And in this case, we very specifically have to distribute it through the parentheses. And notice when I circled it, I attached that negative symbol that was there in front. I'm taking a negative 2.5 times 1, which would be what? Negative 2.5. I'm taking a negative 2.5 times a negative 2n. What is that going to become? That's going to become 5n. Now, I can take a look at what's up here, and I see something that kind of looks the same right now. The only difference between, well, that one's not even right. That one's got a negative. This is going to be a negative 5n, isn't it? Definitely not this one. But this one, this would be 5n, and this would be a negative 1.5n. So this has the same value, and I can see that when I'm to this point. Is this in its simplest form yet? No. What should I do? I should put the two ends together, right? Combine those like terms. Negative 2.5. And if I take 5 and I subtract 1.5 from it, I get 3.5n. So the two that are up here that would have been right were B and E. All the others would not work out the same. Everybody okay? I took 5n and I subtracted 1.5n, or I added a negative 1.5n. 5 take away 1.5 is a positive 3.5n. Okay? I just put these two together. Pretty good with the first example. On the second example, it says mark which expressions are equivalent. And again, they're starting out with this. What am I going to do first in this problem? I think you're really close, but not quite right. You were much closer than subtract 8 and 2. You said that I was going to multiply 2 times 5x. Yeah, make sure that you attach that sign that's with that 2. And I know that that's a big mistake that people make. Attach that sign. I've got to take a negative 2 times 5x and a negative 2 times a negative 3. We're going to leave the 8 alone. I don't do subtraction before I do multiplication. So I'm going to multiply first. Negative 2 times 5x becomes what? Negative 10x. Negative 2 times negative 3. Positive 6. So I'm going to take a look up here and see if I see anything that looks like that. And you know what? Here I see B already. That's equivalent. And I can't tell yet about the others. Not for sure. What else should I do to simplify this? I can put the 8 and the 6 together. When I combine 8 and 6, I get what? 14. Well, there's another one that I can see. Let's take a look at the other ones that are up here. 6 times 5x would be what? 30x minus 18. That's definitely not the same. We've already shown that these two are. Let's take this negative and distribute it in this one. This would be 8 minus 10x. But what's a negative times a negative? Positive 6. Does that look the same? So this one's also equivalent. What's wrong with part D? What's wrong with part D? It's a negative 6. So if I simplified this, this would be a negative 10x plus 2, and it's not going to be equivalent. Everybody remember simplifying expressions? Remember, when you're simplifying expressions, it involved the distributive property, and it involved combining like terms. Pretty good with example 2. Example 3 is not asking me now so much to simplify it as it says to factor it. In other words, I'm looking for what can go into each one of the 3 terms. What do each of these 3 terms all have in common? The variable is the easiest to look at. There's an x and a y in all of them, so the x and the y can come out. That's definitely a factor. Okay? What will go into 48, 24, and 40? 8 goes into it. 4 goes into it. 2 went into it. Obviously, they're all even numbers. Does 6 go into all of them? No. So, is 4 a factor? Yes, 4 is a factor. Is 3x a factor? No. Was 24 a factor? No. Is 8y a factor? Yes. Is 2xy a factor? Yes. Is 6xy a factor? No. Okay. Let's go ahead and factor this out. What's the largest number I could take out? What's the largest number I could take out? And the largest variables I can take out is xy. What would I have to multiply this 8xy by to get back to this first term? Negative 6 what? Z. What would I multiply the 8xy by to get back to the second term? Negative what? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Negative 3? Yeah, negative 3. What would I multiply 8xy by to get back to this 40xyz? By the way, if I truly wanted to simplify it, which it doesn't say to do, it said select all that apply, is there something else I could put together? I could put these together. So I could have 8xy, negative 6 times plus 5 is a negative 1z minus 3. Sometimes they ask us to actually factor it out and simplify our results. But do you remember doing these? A little bit. This says, what's the simplest form of this term? And I can tell you the first thing that people aren't going to like is, what does this one have in it?
Fraction.
And in fact, it has more than one in it, doesn't it? Most of the time when you see fractions, those fractions will go away. The first thing that we have to do is distribute. Remember that this, the numeric part of this, you can do on what? You can do it. It's going to have an x in it. Does everybody remember how to do the 1/3 times 45 on the calculator? Does everybody remember? Again, remember that this button with the ABC is the fraction button. So I'm going to put in 1. I'm going to hit the ABC button and 3. This is now 1/3. I'm going to hit times 45 and hit equals. And what did I get? 15. By the way, this particular problem, when I looked at this, I would have just said 3 goes into 45 how many times? 15. I really didn't need a calculator, but if you have one and you get one of those brain freezes at the moment, you think, you know what, I'm just going to punch it in the calculator, be safe, and it's certainly okay to use it. On this one, again, I know it's going to end up being negative, and I could look at this and simplify it. How many times does 3 go into 18? 6. So this would end up being a negative 6 over 7. Go ahead and multiply 1/3 times a negative 18/7 and make sure that you get a negative 6/7. Anybody need help keying it in their calculator and understanding how to make that work? You got it? Should be a negative 6 over 7, right? Did you get that for an answer? Then you're okay. That's all I'm asking. Okay, so let's talk about the negative that's there and how to get it in. This is just like the 4-function calculator where you got to hit that plus minus button after you put the number in. So I'm going to put in the 1/3 first. I'm going to put in the 1/3, 1, ABC button, third, times, and what was I multiplying it by? 18 over 7, but a negative 18 over 7. So I'm going to put in 18, the ABC button, the 7, but then I'm going to hit that plus minus button right below the fraction button. And now you can see it's a negative 18 over 7, and I'm going to hit equals. And you'll see that I get the results of negative 6/7. But you have to hit that plus minus button on this calculator after you put the number in. It allows you to change its sign. Questions on this fourth example? Use factoring to rewrite each expression in equivalent form. Use the fewest number of terms possible. Now, it's important that you understand what terms means. How many terms are here in this particular problem, part A? Does anybody know? There are 3. Anything that's separated with addition and subtraction. There's 3 currently. The first thing that you should do when you're factoring is you should simplify if it will. Are there like things that I could put together in part A? Yes. What can I put together? 8 and 2. So I'm going to put 4x plus 10. By the way, I'm now down to how many terms? 2 terms. Okay? What will come out of both 4x and the 10? 2. And 2 then times 2x plus 5. Now this is a little bit of a trick question. How many terms is this?
1.
This is one term. Because this is a group, it's parentheses times a number. How many terms is this? Yeah, it is multiplication. But the only thing that makes a term is being separated by what? Addition or subtraction. This is one thing inside of parentheses. It's one thing being multiplied by another thing. Multiplication doesn't create a term. Only addition and subtraction. So this had 2 terms. It wouldn't have been in the simplest form with the fewest terms. This would have been in the simplest form with the fewest terms because now it only has 1 term in it. In B, what things should I put together before I factor it? The 3x and the 6x I should put together. 3x and 6x is 9x. What other things should I put together? Negative 12 and 9, which is what? Negative 3. Now, I went from having 4 terms down to having what? 2 terms. In those 2 terms, do they have something in common? Is there a factor that I can take out? What can I take out? 3. 3 times what? 3x minus 1. How many terms does this now have? 1 term. So 3 times 3x minus 1, simplest form. 2 times 2x plus 5, simplest form, and both of which have 1 term in it. Okay?
For the other one,
Mm-hmm.
why'd you put the 2 in front of the 3?
Because what came out of 4 and 10? What do they have in common?
They're both divided by 2.
So I took a 2 out, and I said, what did I have to multiply this 2 by to get back to this 4x, which was 2x? What would I multiply this 2 by to get back to this 10, which is 5? Okay. Jenna? Terms are only separated by what? Addition and subtraction. You can write a great big long expression. How many terms? How many terms? 1. Because terms are separated by what? Addition or subtraction. If I change this to addition, how many terms? 2. This would be 1 group, and this would be 1 group. Everybody understand what it means to be a term? Worksheets on the front cart. You can work on that for the remainder of the class. And again, if you have questions, please bring those questions to me.